This is BBC Newsline. I'm Tara Mills. Tonight's headlines. The head of the Presbyterian Church in Ireland steps down after serious and significant failings in safeguarding.
I've made these decisions and taken these steps with the deepest personal regret that our central failings have caused such harm to those who deserve our protection the most.
Unionist and nationalist councillors in Londonderry condemn the theft of poppy wreaths after Remembrance commemorations.
At no stage have we been able to lay a wreath, leave it there and had not be stolen and later we find it's either on a bonfire or destroyed.
It's not Brazil, it's Northern Ireland, as local pupils argue how best to deal with climate change in a mock COP30 event. How the sound of the underground is being used to attract tourists.
Join me in Kosice with all the latest from the Northern Ireland football team ahead of their crucial World Cup qualifier this Friday against Slovakia.
And sadly, no Northern Lights tonight. This is a picture from last night. Tonight we've got cloud and rain, but we've got some really great photographs to share with you from last night. I'll be back with the full forecast.
Hello and welcome to Wednesday's programme. We start tonight with news that the Presbyterian moderator is stepping down after serious and significant failings in safeguarding. The Reverend Trevor Gribben said people have been placed at risk due to the failings. It's believed to be the first time in the long history of the Church that the moderator has stepped aside while in office. He'll leave the position at the end of this month. Here's our community correspondent, Mark Simpson.
Ladies and gentlemen, the moderator of the Presbyterian Church will now make a statement. Dr. Gribben.
It was a statement which no moderator had ever made before, since the position was created almost 200 years ago.
I've decided it would be best at this time for me to step aside from my current role.
His previous role was General Secretary of the Church, a post he held from 2014. Part of that time covered a 14-year period when the Church admits safeguarding failings occurred. He says he wasn't directly in charge of safeguarding at the time, but said sorry for what happened.
We're aware of a number of people who have been harmed. We believe that there may be others as yet unknown to us. We apologise unreservedly for this.
At the end of his statement, he didn't take any questions.
What do you say to the victims?
The Presbyterian Church has recently carried out an investigation into safeguarding issues. But what prompted it?
We became aware of the actions of a member of one of our congregations, not within that particular congregation, but in another area of his life. We were informed of this by the PSNI.
So how widespread was this investigation?
There are a small number of people who have made disclosures to us. That would include 3 congregations where we are aware of people who have come forward and spoken with us. If there are other people as yet unknown to us, we want them to come forward and speak with us because we want them to get the help that they need.
Yesterday, the Reverend Trevor Gribben was in Dublin, one of the church leaders at the inauguration of the new Irish president. Now he's preparing to stand down from the leadership role and retire. Mark Simpson, BBC Newsline.
I'm joined now by William Crawley. William, you were also at that news conference this afternoon. Did this come out of the blue?
It was utterly shocking. I think this will be devastating for a lot of people in the Presbyterian Church. Since the Presbyterian Church was formed in 1840, there have been 179 moderators. This is the first time any of them has ever had to resign in office. And what we learned today was that from the period 2009 to 2022, safeguarding the protection of children and vulnerable people was a morass within the church. It was a blur. People would come forward with allegations or claims. They weren't properly investigated. The church acknowledges today they didn't even follow their own rules. They didn't do proper note-taking and record-keeping. And sometimes offenders would be released from prison, would go to churches, and there are careful rules in place for the monitoring of those people if they ever attend a church. They weren't followed either. And now the church is saying to its own people, leave it to us to investigate what went wrong. Leave it to us to mark our own homework. So I asked the Reverend David Bruce today if Presbyterians or anyone else can trust the church to do that.
The report that we have produced internally, as I've said to you, cannot be published because it contains information about live cases involving individuals, and it would be inappropriate for us to simply hand that to yourself or to anybody else.
So, William, what happens next?
What happens next, bureaucratically, is at the start of December, last year's moderator, Richard Murray, returns as the moderator to serve out this year. But the most important question is this report that prompted this day of chaos, this bombshell announcement today, will it be published? Why can't Presbyterians see this report? We were handed a 3-page document today, stapled together, 3 A4 sheets of paper. Can that really be the end of this? Does that really draw a line under this? And if that report is not published, there will be a lot of questions at next year's General Assembly, I can assure you. Who's going to investigate what went wrong and how to fix it? The Presbyterian Church today is telling us they will be the people to do that. Can that stand?
William, thank you very much indeed. And there's more on this breaking story, including reaction and analysis on our website. You can also download the BBC News app. Now, unionists and nationalist councillors have condemned the theft of poppy wreaths, which were part of the Remembrance commemorations in Derry. The police say they're investigating a number of incidents and are treating them as sectarian hate crimes. A 16-year-old boy was arrested in connection with a banner reported to have been stolen from a Remembrance display in the Fountain Estate. Here's our North West reporter Kieran Turish.
The Remembrance ceremony in the Diamond yesterday attracted cross-community support as local people and politicians came to pay their respects. Many wreaths were laid on behalf of a range of organisations, but they have now had to be removed for safekeeping. The DUP say that several were stolen since the weekend.
As on a continued basis, you know, we at no stage have we been able to lay a wreath, leave it there and had not be stolen, and later we find us either on a bonfire or destroyed.
There's been strong condemnation of the theft of poppy wreaths.
The events that we've seen over the last number of days are wrong.
SDLP councillor John Boyle said those engaged in attacking memorials or stealing poppy wreaths were displaying a total disrespect for the fallen. His grandfather, Jack Rutherford, joined the British Army at 16 and went to war a year later, fighting in several battles, including the Somme.
All of us, we need to understand the importance of respect and dignity for people who want to remember their dead.
In the fountain there was damage too. Several memorial crosses were vandalised and there was an attempt to remove a large poppy installation. A poster dedicated to those who lost their lives was stolen.
Every time we try to get some sort of dialogue going with maybe some of these young people, it's not really happening.
The police say they're treating all these incidents as sectarian hate crimes. They have issued an appeal for information. They want to hear from anyone who can help with their investigations. Kieran Turish, BBC Newsline, Derry.
The director of the Belfast Film Festival has described how she put her head in her hands when she watched a speech made by the organisation's inclusion coordinator at a women's rights rally. Michelle Devlin told an employment tribunal that she was worried about the potential reputational damage Sarah Morrison's speech about keeping men out of women's spaces could cause to the film festival, but she did not view the remarks as transphobic. Ms Morrison is claiming that the Belfast Film Festival unlawfully discriminated against her over her beliefs on sex and gender. Lindsay Telford has been following the story.
Sarah Morrison believes that people can't change their biological sex. It's her case that her participation at this event sparked a flurry of complaints from the LGBTQ community, branding her transphobic, and that her employer, the Belfast Film Festival, in turn launched an investigation that forced her out of her job on work-related stress. She's claiming she was discriminated against over her beliefs, which is something the BFF denies. During her speech at the Let Women Speak rally, Ms Morrison said that men should keep out of women's spaces. She also criticised a number of local women's organisations, and it was this criticism that Michelle Devlin, the director of the BFF, said concerned her most. She told the tribunal, "I sat on my desk and I put my head in my hands." A number of our client organisations were mentioned, people we had worked with, continued to work with, and would work with in the future.
We need to keep men out of women's spaces.
She was worried, she said, about the potential damage to both the BFF's reputation and its partnerships. She said she did not believe Ms Morrison's speech had been transphobic. Ms Morrison has received funding for this tribunal by author J.K. Rowling, one of the most famous women on the planet. But it was another well-known woman who was mentioned during today's proceedings, the former US Republican politician, Sarah Palin. It emerged today that after the BFF's investigation was launched, Director Michelle Devlin referred to Sarah Morrison as Sarah Palin. She said it was a joke because both women were loud and vivacious. A barrister for Ms Morrison put it to her that the comparison was in fact due to the politician's perceived right-wing views. Views, she said, that tend to be ascribed to women who share Ms Morrison's position on gender. But Ms Devlin rejected this. She said she viewed Sarah Palin as wacky and that this was just a joke at a time of stress. The tribunal here in Belfast continues. Lindsay Telford, BBC Newsline.
Last year, domestic abuse accounted for around 20% of all crimes recorded here. Now, nursing students at Queen's University are to become the first in the UK to receive specialist training. Through the Unlock Safety Initiative, they'll be trained to spot when a patient may be a victim of abuse, respond effectively and connect them to support services. Bernie Allen spoke to some of those involved.
Within your career, you're going to come into contact with people who have been affected by domestic abuse.
Learning to recognise the signs of domestic abuse. From today, that's what first-year nursing students at Queen's are now studying as part of their degree.
Our nurses come into contact with thousands of women, and hopefully, if they can even save one life, or they can help one woman, well, it'll be enough. It'll have worked for us.
Many women tell us that they would disclose to health professionals, and I think the empathy, compassion, they're in a caring profession by nature, and being able to ask those questions in the right way can really, really make a difference.
With women making up around 90% of the nursing workforce, it's hoped that this initiative will help students tackle domestic abuse from the start of their careers.
Great that we're getting this because when we are out in the hospitals, you don't know what you're going to be faced with and who you're going to be faced with and what they have been through. So it's good to know that you have that training behind you and you know how to go forward with that.
We're going to be the nurses of the future, and I think it's really important with the latest statistics and stuff to be able to deal with those situations to get more women help.
Those involved in the project are hopeful that other health degrees will also be able to incorporate the training in the future to ensure as many as possible are able to spot the signs of domestic abuse. Bernie Allen, BBC Newsline.
Now, for a few hours today, Belfast became the Amazonian city of Belém as more than 80 local students tackled the issues currently being debated there at the COP30 climate negotiations. They took on the roles of different countries and delegations at the talks, which are aimed at tackling global climate change. But did they reach agreement? Our agriculture and environment correspondent Louise Cullen can tell us.
We're not Brazil, we're Northern Ireland. But today, these students were both. It's the 5th time a mock COP has been held.
This is an opportunity for young people to step into the shoes of the countries, the regions, the fossil fuel interests who are lobbying on the margins, and of civil society.
Trees don't pay taxes.
And they took that opportunity.
So I want to try my best to reduce all the trouble for my generation.
We are trying to limit agreements to reduce fossil fuel usage, and to do that we're trying to focus attention on to other issues such as deforestation and landfill sites.
Everyone else got sweets and water, we're left with nothing, so I think that kind of shows how we're treated. As politics students, we believe that we are representing what the American government are like as a whole at the minute, and their stance on climate negotiations in not negotiating anything.
It's wonderful to give them the opportunity to think about one of the major international challenges that's facing the globe, and it's really interesting to see the way in which they've gripped the arguments and are really getting into the detail.
There may have been lessons for some.
Today stands in stark contrast to some of the politics in recent weeks in Northern Ireland. There's a collective will, there's hope, there's positivity.
The UN Secretaries General were cautiously optimistic.
There'll be a lot of discussion, a lot of different opinions and viewpoints that we're all excited to hear. And we really hope at the end that everyone can come to some sort of agreement so we can reach our goals of reducing the global temperatures to between 1.5 and 2 degrees.
Sadly, they failed. Hopefully not a bad sign for their real-life counterparts in Belém. Louise Cullen, BBC Newsline at Belfast Castle.
Now, the Marble Arch Caves in County Fermanagh were opened to the public 40 years ago, and many of us will have visited on a school trip or a family day out. But there's a new way to enjoy this ancient underground place, and that's through sound. ASMR is that slightly tingling sensation triggered by certain sounds, and ASMR recordings have been made inside the caves, as our Southwest reporter Elaine Mitchell has been finding out.
65,000 visitors come to the Marble Arch Caves every year. But these aren't visitors. It's a team directed by Tourism NI to gather the essence of the caves in sound.
The medium of sound is a way to promote connection and well-being and calm. But how I do that is I use some instruments as well in the process to help people relax and to connect them with their space.
ASMR is a viral sensation. Millions of people seek out sounds to trigger a physical response in the body, like tingles. It's deeply relaxing.
Sound triggers are chosen to inspire sensations within the body. And those sensations may be tingling sensations from head to shoulder or down the spine, feeling experiences and sensations. And then when we move it on to a place like this, and these type of natural sounds, then you will begin to notice how the sounds around you and the sounds in your environment can actually create these feelings and these sensations.
The aim of this project is to have people from all around the world connect with the sound of the Marble Arch Caves in the hope that they'll come and visit this and other Northern Irish landmarks.
Hear the giant awakening. It's all part of Tourism NI's Giant Awakening project, which features the Giant's Causeway and Glenariff's Waterfall alongside the caves. And for the team here, the project is a chance to bring the beauty of the caves to a new audience.
It's a topic at the moment that's quite popular. Wellness, relaxation, that sensory elements to people's lives now that is very popular. And again, the caves brings a huge element into that. People go underground on cave tour and find it a completely different world, very relaxing, calming. And they come out, they've, I suppose, connected with nature.
And the symphony of sound from the caves, millions of years in the making, is now available worldwide. Elaine Mitchell, BBC Newsline, at the Marble Arch Caves.
Now, he took some of the most memorable photographs of the Troubles and the peace process, and this is just a selection. Brendan Murphy was a familiar sight around the streets of Belfast with his camera slung over his shoulder. He died yesterday at the age of 84. He worked for the Irish News and was also a generous mentor to many budding journalists and photographers. Julia McCulloch spoke to former Irish News editor Noel Doran.
Here's just one of the images from the Troubles that Irish News photographer Brendan Murphy shot over his long career. He wasn't often in front of a camera, but here he is at his book launch back in 2003. A book that his former editor at the Irish News, Noel Doran, still has today.
There's something about that with the pipe smoke. He would have covered some of the worst days of violence in very graphic terms, but I think some of his most memorable images were the people, some ordinary people, some famous people. I was looking at some of the famous pictures, such as the day that Paul Hill came to town with Courtney Kennedy after his acquittal. He was an exceptional person who will never be forgotten in Belfast journalism, and I'm tremendously saddened that he's died after a long illness.
Brendan Murphy, who was 84 when he died, leaves behind decades of images that help tell the story of Northern Ireland. Julie McCulloch, BBC Newsline.
A complete gentleman. Now, last night, BBC Northern Ireland won 2 awards at the Royal Television Society ceremony. One for this programme's coverage of the race riots in Ballymena in June, and a second for BBC Spotlight's I Am Not OK programme about mothers and their fight for help caring for their autistic son's distressing outbursts, which won the Best Current Affairs award. Time for sport now. Nicola McCarthy is here, and there's a huge few days ahead.
Absolutely, Tara. Massive for Michael O'Neill's side. Good evening, everyone. For Northern Ireland, the next few days will define their possible path to the World Cup finals next summer. They have 2 group games coming up in 4 days. Luxembourg are at Windsor Park on Monday. But first comes a crucial match away to Slovakia. Stephen Watson reports from there tonight for BBC Newsline.
Inside this sold-out 12,500 all-seater arena in Košice on Friday night, Northern Ireland will hope to take another positive step towards World Cup qualification. A draw or better against Slovakia, and they still have a chance of securing the runner-up spot in their group. That means a playoff route to the finals. The injured Shea Charles and Ali McCann are missing, but the Northern Ireland squad does include Isaac Price. The 22-year-old has already scored 10 international goals. And there are 5 Premier League players: Conor Bradley, Dan Ballard, Trey Hume, Justin Devaney and Callum.
I playing for Northern Ireland. I didn't score many goals at all, especially professionally. I had 18 months in Belgium where I scored 1 goal.
Ireland is live on BBC 2 this Friday night. I'll be back live tomorrow on the programme when we'll hear from the Northern Ireland manager, Michael O'Neill. Stephen Watson, BBC Newsline, Košice.
Now, the Republic of Ireland will face Cristiano Ronaldo and Portugal in Dublin tomorrow. The home side need a positive result in the game to keep alive their playoff hopes, having lost in Lisbon to an injury time winner last month.
It was gut-wrenching in the sense to lose it the way we did in the end, but there's a good platform to build on that, and obviously you're flipping it to the Aviva, our fans, our noise behind it to maybe influence and put more pressure on ourselves first and foremost, on everyone to perform at home, but also on making sure we're in control of situations that obviously Portugal were in control of lots of situations in their home venue too.
The Ireland men's rugby team face Australia this Saturday night in the second of their home autumn internationals at the Aviva Stadium in Dublin. And it's a coaching rematch of the recent Lions tour as head coach Andy Farrell pits his wits once more against Joe Schmidt, his predecessor, who coaches the Wallabies and obviously knows the Ireland setup very well.
Oh, we just know that they'll have a great plan coming into the weekend. We know he's a great mind, and this will be a big game for Joe coming back to Dublin. It always is, and it was a competitive, tough affair last year, and we expect no different this year. And look, as I said, as a coaching group, we've all had experience with Joe. We've all got huge amounts of respect for him, and we know that the team, especially after what happened in Italy and the disappointment there, they'll be coming with a point to prove.
Finally, cricket, and Ireland were all out for 286 on the second day of their first test in Bangladesh. Their hosts then piled on the runs to lead by 52 with 9 wickets still in hand. And that is the sport this evening, Tara.
Nicola, thank you. Now, some stargazers across Northern Ireland got the chance to witness the Northern Lights last night. The pictures are just stunning, and it's pretty unusual for us to get such clear pictures of the Northern Lights. Any chance, Cecilia, that we will see more tonight?
They are absolutely amazing, Tara, aren't they? Unfortunately, things don't look quite so good tonight, but it's worth thanking all our weather watchers because the shots were taken between 3 and 4 in the morning, and I didn't set an alarm for it, and I'm sure Tara didn't either. So the reason we won't see them tonight, because there will be another solar storm which obviously would create this, is because we've got this area of rain moving up from the southeast. So that's obviously going to bring thickening clouds. So it's turning increasingly cloudy and wet this evening. Now, the rain will take a little while to get to the north coast, but when it does arrive, it's going to be persistent and heavy at times. And again, around that 3 or 4 o'clock time, there's lots of cloud and there's persistent rain in places, and also quite a keen wind picking up towards the north coast. So rain is what will greet many of us tomorrow morning. It'll feel cooler because of those blustery winds. There'll be a lot of cloud around as well, and the rain looks to be heaviest across the north and in some eastern areas too. So that's what will be around tomorrow morning through the commute. Now, the rain will gradually become more and more patchy as the day goes on, but it's likely to stay quite cloudy and damp with lower temperatures than today, and again that blustery wind making it feel that bit cooler. Tomorrow night, the last of those dribs and drabs of rain will finally clear away. Much of the night's looking pretty cloudy, but by the end of the night, there'll be some cloud breaks, quite a brisk wind in places, lower temperatures. Now, it's not getting any warmer through the rest of the week, but most of the rain will stay away from us. So on Thursday, a lot of the rain will be across the southeast of the island, with drier and brighter weather developing across Northern Ireland, but again, that cold wind. And you can see the wet weather continues to affect mainly southern parts of Britain and Ireland until it finally moves away, and we're looking at this cold air seeping down from the north with quite a chilly wind. So a lot of dry weather to come after tomorrow, but it will be chilly at times, especially in the wind. We'll see lower daytime temperatures and some chilly nights with possible frost, Tara.
Cecilia, thank you very much. That's it for now. Our late news is at 10:30 from everyone on the team. Thanks for watching. Have a good night. Bye-bye.